I think the Indian position has changed as all countries have changed their positions over the last few decades. It has changed over the last few years significantly after the Paris Conference of Parties and the Paris Agreement in 2015, which is the most robust agreement of nationally determined contributions where countries make voluntary commitments to go green, if you want, in a very broad term, and transit their economies towards greener objectives. In the case of India, that is a 2030 voluntary objective that the Prime Minister announced at Paris. And then you have the 2070 net zero ambition that India has declared. But to achieve that, you have a variety of steps that have been taken. And I think what has significantly changed in the Indian position, which is one of the propositions that I made together with Kartik Nachiappan in the recent report that we published by the Center for Social and Economic Progress, is that India's position, in terms of the visibility, the perception has changed from what used to be called and seen fairly or unfairly as a naysayer, as a negative, obstructionist actor in climate negotiations, a country that was reluctant about making commitments, a country that saw climate and growth, or development in particular in the case of India, as incompatible. That has shifted progressively over the last few two decades, and particularly the last few years, towards an India that is a much more affirmative, positive player, a country that sees opportunities in the climate transition, that sees climate and development as being compatible in that sense, or basically you can have green growth in India. Of course, the speed at which that can be done, the ways in which this can be done, India has its own views, which in some ways align, in other ways are different from the global north, developed, industrialized countries. But at least now you have the space to have that negotiation towards solutions.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that India has pivoted from being part of the problem to be part of the solution, right?
For global north countries, that I think is right. That is a perspective. If you talk to diplomats today from the US, from Sweden, or from Germany, or even from Japan, they traditionally saw India exactly as a naysayer, as an obstructionist country in reaching agreements. In fact, you and I remember that also sometimes India took that positively. It was happy to obstruct agreements. But it's also important to question what agreements were being proposed. These were heavily global north aligned agreements. This was and still is much more of a priority, the green transition in the global north than it's in the global south, where you still have a large percentage of the populations below the poverty line. And I think shifting that has now opened up a very different posture on both sides. In the global north, as India is a land of opportunity to scale up, incubate innovations that are climate-centric and also development-sensitive. And within the global south, in India in particular, that openness saying, we are here now to find solutions that can compatibilize climate and growth at the same time. Not only for us, by the way, here in India, but for the larger developing countries that are still, if you want, industrializing and carbonizing, not decarbonizing, right? So that are still growing, industrializing, and therefore have a natural socio-economic priority to deliver growth and development to their populations.